Jonas Salk. This way you will exterminate 90% of diseases without pills. Imagine waking up each morning with a boundless sense of energy, confident that your body is armed to repel most of the ailments that plague the modern world, and doing so without leaning on a cabinet stocked with pills. It sounds almost too good to be true. Yet Jonas Salk, famed for eradicating the terrors of polio through his groundbreaking vaccine, had more to say about conquering disease than just the laboratory triumphs. He believed there was a powerful synergy hidden in plain sight, a set of daily practices so fundamental that, if we adhered to them, we could fend off the overwhelming majority of common illnesses. By the end of this story, you'll see just how Salk's vision extends beyond a single miraculous discovery. It stretches into a philosophy of life, one that might just save you from 90% of the routine afflictions that sap our vitality. Stick with me, because the final moments will reveal a surprisingly simple but life-changing method that aligns your body's intrinsic resilience with the same spirit that once conquered polio. Jonas Salk, as many know, was no ordinary researcher. Born in 1914 to immigrant parents in New York City, he soared from modest beginnings to become the leader of a scientific revolution that freed millions from the menace of paralysis. The polio vaccine was hailed as a near miracle in the mid-20th century, transforming Salk into a global hero. Yet behind the spotlight and accolades, Salk carried a deeper notion about health. That immunization was only one piece of a grander puzzle, that humans could do so much more to fortify their bodies against an entire spectrum of diseases. If polio, a fearsome virus, could be contained through targeted intervention, might we not also discover ways to outmaneuver countless other ailments through a more holistic approach to the immune system? In effect, Salk believed nature had endowed us with a capacity for self-preservation more robust than we imagine, if only we'd harness it correctly. But what did he mean by exterminating 90% of diseases without pills? Was he envisioning some new universal vaccine? Another wonder drug hidden in rainforest plants? Not quite. The surprising truth is that Salk advocated for the synergy of daily habits and mental frameworks that tune the body's immune defenses to their peak. He recognized that in the same way polio spread hinged on public hygiene, civic responsibility, and personal choices, so too do many chronic and infectious diseases thrive on the lapses of daily living. Poor diet, excessive stress, lack of sleep, minimal movement, and a neglect of mental well-being. Combine these factors, and the body's natural disease-fighting arsenal becomes compromised, opening the door to a barrage of illnesses. Salk's perspective might seem quaint in a modern era flush with pharmaceuticals, but it resonates powerfully with contemporary science, from epigenetics to microbiome research to psychoneuroimmunology. We now know that everything from our gut flora to our sleep patterns to our emotional climate can tip the immune system's balance. To appreciate the full breadth of this notion, we have to roll back the clock to the early 1950s, when Salk was toiling away on the polio vaccine. While the media fixated on polio's horrifying grip, few realized that Salk also studied broader immunological principles. How repeated exposures to pathogens prime our defenses, how stress hormones hamper immune response, and how nutrient deficiencies erode resilience. By observing how the vaccine taught the body to recognize and defeat polio, he became even more convinced that the human system was capable of formidable self-protection, if we removed the blocks that hamper it. In that sense, exterminating 90% of diseases wasn't about a single silver bullet, but rather forging an environment in which the body's own protective intelligence can flourish. Let's highlight the specifics. By the late 1950s, Salk was on record remarking that one of our greatest battles was against ignorance of how our bodies maintain health. He lamented that people too often surrendered to illness as though it were random fate, ignoring that everyday patterns, food, sleep, mental stress, can set the stage for either robust immunity or perpetual vulnerability. He saw a direct link between chronic stress, poor nutrition, and the immune system's inability to keep pathogens or degenerative processes at bay. The more he studied viruses, the more he realized the body is not passive. It's engaged in a constant dance with invaders, adjusting and attacking, provided it's well-nourished, well-rested, and psychologically balanced. Let's place a marker here and pose our first question for you to reflect on or respond to in the comments. If you honestly assess your lifestyle, diet, stress management, physical activity, mental outlook, do you believe you're empowering your immune system or quietly undermining it? Think of a single habit you have that might be weakening your defenses. Feel free to share. Sometimes, recognizing that one key behavior is the first step in realigning it toward a healthier pattern. Now, how did Salk think we could unify these insights into a workable daily system? Something that might eliminate 90% of diseases without reaching for medication. The essence is threefold. Shape your environment, shape your mindset, and shape your bodily cycles. First, the environment. Salk recognized that a virus like polio thrived in poor sanitation, close quarters, and ignorance about transmission paths. Extrapolating that, he concluded that many diseases, be they bacterial, viral, or lifestyle-related, also feed off environmental lapses. Contaminated water, excessive pollution, or even the mental environment of negativity and hopelessness. To Salk, environment extended beyond mere physical cleanliness. It included your relationships, the media you consume, and the daily routines that either create stress or foster peace. For instance, if you constantly bathe your mind in alarmist headlines and social drama, your sympathetic nervous system remains on red alert, fueling chronic inflammation. On the other hand, if you cultivate a calm, orderly, and uplifting environment, both physically and psychologically, you empower your system to operate in a rest and digest mode, allowing for better immune function. Second, the mindset. Salk observed that people with a strong sense of purpose and optimism often weathered health storms better than those who succumbed to despair. While he never claimed positivity alone cures all ailments, he saw that an individual's belief in their capacity to heal or remain healthy often correlated with actual outcomes. We now know, through the fields of psychoneuroimmunology, that mental states can modulate hormone levels, immune cell activity, and even gene expression. Salk's stance was that if polio taught us anything, it's that knowledge and determination can overcome even the direst adversaries. In day-to-day life, that translates to building a mindset of resilience, curiosity, and empowerment, rather than letting cynicism and anxiety chip away at your body's defenses. Third, shaping bodily cycles. Salk was particularly intrigued by how the polio virus targeted specific tissues at certain times, and how the body's circadian rhythms influenced susceptibility. He suspected that many pathogens exploit vulnerabilities when the body's immune vigilance is low, often triggered by poor sleep, erratic eating schedules, or overexposure to stress. Consequently, he believed in the power of routine, going to bed and waking up at consistent times, nourishing the body at intervals aligned with digestion, and allowing for periods of rest and movement throughout the day. Though it might sound basic, this cyclical discipline can drastically reduce chronic inflammation, stabilize hormone levels, and free the immune system to do its job unimpeded by constant emergencies created by haphazard living. Imagine, then, a day shaped by Salk's principles. You rise at dawn or near it, letting natural light calibrate your internal clock. You begin with a brief mental practice, perhaps simple gratitude or reflection on your goals, instilling the positive mindset that so enthralled Salk. You have a nutrient-dense breakfast, avoiding empty sugars that spike insulin and stress your body from the get-go. You keep your environment tidy, ensuring adequate ventilation, sunlight, and minimal clutter, a reflection of polio-era lessons about hygiene and cleanliness. Throughout your workday, you manage stress proactively. Short breaks to breathe or stretch, a mindful lunch that includes fiber, vitamins, and minerals fueling your immune cells, and an avoidance of the chronic tension that so often saps your system. By evening, you wind down at a sensible hour, limiting screen time that disrupts melatonin production, and maybe concluding the day with another reflective practice, acknowledging small wins or moments of beauty. Over time, you might find you get fewer colds, your allergies lessen, and you rarely need over-the-counter meds. In short, Salk's approach fosters a synergy where your immune system becomes a self-correcting, self-defending marvel. Such a scenario might sound idealized, but it aligns with many modern longevity and wellness insights. If polio taught Salk that big diseases can be halted by a concerted, strategic campaign, he saw everyday ailments could be similarly held at bay by consistent, mindful living. Of course, we must note that Salk never derided medicine or pills outright. He revered science-based interventions, but he worried that as people overcame polio, they might forget the broader lessons about active prevention, settling back into complacency or letting consumer culture push them toward quick fixes and symptom chasing. 90% of diseases without pills was not an exact statistic for him, but a rhetorical flourish implying that a vast swath of conditions, ranging from hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and certain infections to stress-related disorders, are intimately tied to lifestyle. Salk's vantage resonates with the famed blue zones concept in modern health research, regions where people live notably longer with minimal chronic disease, largely due to daily habits, communal bonds, and minimal reliance on pharmaceuticals. Salk's vision predates that phenomenon, but the parallels are striking. He essentially believed that if entire communities adopted consistent patterns of cleanliness, balanced nutrition, mental resilience, and moderate physical activity, we'd see disease rates plummet, mirroring how systematic immunization campaigns slashed polio cases. But how does one maintain discipline in a world brimming with stress and temptation? Salk never claimed it would be easy. In interviews, he spoke about the role of education, self-awareness, and social support. If polio's eradication hinged on communal participation, parents consenting to vaccinate their children, neighborhoods uniting for polio drives, so too does the quest for a pill-free 90% disease elimination. You might need friends who share your vision of healthy living, or at least a personal journal to track your progress. Accountability, as he saw it, was a powerful ally. Let's interject our second question here, to spark reflection or discussion. Which aspect of your lifestyle, be it nutrition, stress management, sleep hygiene, or physical activity, do you believe is currently the biggest barrier to achieving the disease-free, ideal Jonas Salk envisioned? Share your thoughts, because identifying that stumbling block is the critical first step in unraveling it. Now, let's delve deeper into the mental dimension. Jonas Salk was intensely curious about how a negative mindset erodes immunity. He recognized that chronic fear or anxiety keeps the body in a perpetual fight-or-flight state, raising cortisol levels, which in turn hamper immune cell function. Over time, this internal stress fosters inflammation, a precursor to a wide array of diseases from heart conditions to autoimmune disorders. Conversely, a calm, purposeful mind encourages the parasympathetic nervous system to flourish, enabling the immune system to perform maintenance tasks effectively. This interplay helps explain why some people, constantly bombarded by stress and negativity, fall ill at the slightest provocation, while others, exuding a calm determination, remain robust even during flu season. For Salk, the polio story illustrated this principle on a mass scale. Public terror flared every summer, fueling anxiety that overshadowed rational action. Once his vaccine arrived, hope supplanted fear, galvanizing a collective sense of empowerment. In personal health, a similar shift from dread to mindful optimism can be transformative. Instead of seeing your body as a ticking time bomb waiting to succumb to the next bug, you begin to view it as an adaptable fortress, able to repel pathogens if you keep the gates fortified through restful sleep, balanced meals, emotional equilibrium, and perhaps moderate supplementation. Another subtlety in Salk's viewpoint is that eliminating pills doesn't mean rejecting modern medicine in crisis moments. If you break a leg or face a severe bacterial infection, of course you need professional care. The crux of his message was prevention. He believed so many daily afflictions, from recurring migraines and digestive troubles to mild infections, could be sidestepped if we harnessed the body's innate capacity for equilibrium. That stance, ironically, sometimes put him at odds with big pharma interests, who prefer a pill-based approach for everything from sneezes to stress. This tension continues to echo today, with arguments raging over the best ways to handle common ailments. Salk's approach, though, was simply a call for proactive living. Let's talk about the nutrition piece more concretely. Jonas Salk didn't craft elaborate diet plans like modern gurus, but he frequently underscored nutrient density. He admired balanced diets that supply the immune system with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. If polio's vaccine worked by teaching the body to create antibodies, then an everyday diet should also train and sustain the body's immunological prowess. That means cutting down heavily on refined sugars and excessive saturated fats that promote inflammatory states. He also championed whole foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, lean proteins, to ensure the body's toolkit for disease fighting is well stocked. Today, these same guidelines appear in countless studies linking a Mediterranean or plant-rich diet to lower rates of chronic illness. Once again, Salk's hunch aligns with what modern research confirms. The same logic extends to movement. Salk saw the polio wards filled with individuals incapacitated by paralysis, physically unable to move without assistance. Observing that heartbreaking reality led him to revere the gift of physical mobility. He believed that if you have the ability to move, you ought to use it daily, not just occasionally. Regular, moderate exercise helps flush out toxins via the lymphatic system, circulates antibodies more efficiently, and fosters a metabolic environment less hospitable to disease. He didn't call for extreme athletics, just consistent activity, walks, gardening, light calisthenics, anything that prevents stagnation. Modern science echoes that adults who maintain even half an hour of daily moderate exercise drastically reduce their risk for everything from diabetes to depression. Salk's predictions once again hold up. Of course, we must address sleep. Salk recognized that the body recharges its defenses in slumber, mending cellular damage and fine-tuning immune responses. Polio taught the world how a virus could exploit bodily weaknesses, and Salk theorized that suboptimal sleep created a prime window for infections to gain a foothold. He would likely be dismayed at how modern life, with round-the-clock screens, fosters chronic sleep debt. If you want to abide by his 90% disease-free vision, you can't neglect the simple act of going to bed on time. As dull as that might sound, it is, in fact, a cornerstone of Salk's broader approach. Are you seeing the pattern? Salk's exterminate 90% of diseases without pills approach is not about a secret herb or mystical technique. It's about layering fundamental lifestyle pillars: clean environment, mental poise, daily movement, restful sleep, nutrient-rich diet, into a cohesive routine that systematically boosts immune vigilance. In many ways, it's reminiscent of universal precautions, the medical practice of treating every environment as potentially infectious. Except here, you treat your own lifestyle as the universal precaution. By living well each day, you drastically reduce the odds that pathogens or degenerative processes can take hold. Another intriguing aspect is how Salk considered social connection integral to immunity. Observing the communal efforts that led to polio eradication, he sensed that humans thrive immunologically when embedded in supportive networks. Loneliness, chronic isolation, or toxic relationships can foster stress and, again, weaken defenses. By contrast, a stable, uplifting community fosters mental health, which, as we've seen, underpins physical health. This is more than a soft sentiment. Modern epidemiological data show that social bonds significantly correlate with lower morbidity and mortality. Salk's principle of "we overcame polio together" evolves into "we maintain robust health together." It's an invitation to see personal wellness as part of a shared cultural fabric. So how do we apply all these threads in practical form? Perhaps you're already gleaning a plan from Salk's insights. Start with a healthy wake-up routine. Sunrise or near it, a moment of calm reflection or journaling, a nutrient-rich breakfast, maybe oats with berries or a veggie omelet. Tackle your day with scheduled micro-breaks, maintaining decent posture and sneaking in movement. As stress arises, practice short, mindful breathing rather than letting anxiety spiral. Enjoy a balanced lunch with protein and greens, and, if possible, some sunshine for vitamin D. Avoid the siren call of processed snacks or endless coffee refills. Approach dinner as your day's final nourishment, mindful of portion sizes. Then wind down with minimal screen time, letting your body shift naturally into sleep readiness. If you replicate that routine most days, you might find yourself rarely needing pills for headaches, indigestion, or colds. Over months or years, that advantage compounds, reminiscent of Salk's unstoppable vaccine rollout that, once begun, dramatically cut polio's prevalence. By no means is this guaranteed to prevent every sickness. Life is unpredictable and genetics matter, but you'd slash your statistical risk of countless ailments by abiding in a supportive daily structure. As for mental health, incorporate gratitude or purpose-driven reflection. Salk believed that if polio's near eradication proved anything, it's that we can accomplish the extraordinary if fueled by altruism and hope. A daily gratitude practice or journaling session fosters that positivity, nudging your immune system toward resilience. Over time, positivity becomes a self-reinforcing loop, building emotional and physical fortitude. And if you slip up because Let's face it, modern life is hectic. Salk wouldn't want you to berate yourself. A single day of chaos or an acute illness is no condemnation. The real power lies in consistent return to the fundamentals. Just as polio wasn't stopped in a week, you can't fix a lifetime of poor habits overnight. But each day you rededicate to these principles, you tip the scales in favor of your immune cells, your mental clarity, and your body's inherent potential to ward off disease. Let's circle back to the question of exterminate 90% of diseases. Some readers might challenge that figure. Is it hyperbole? Possibly. We can't measure it exactly. But the underlying message stands. A vast majority of ailments we face, particularly lifestyle-related chronic diseases, frequent infections, stress-induced disorders, are intimately linked to daily habits. Salk's vantage, shaped by his polio crusade, recognized that prevention is infinitely more potent than cure. If the world invests in robust daily living, from personal routines to public hygiene, we'd see a precipitous drop in misery, medication reliance, and hospital burdens. This is more relevant than ever in a world facing antibiotic resistance, new viral threats, and the spread of lifestyle-driven illnesses like diabetes and heart disease. That's why Salk's wisdom might feel timely even decades after the polio threat receded. And here we stand, poised to glean the concluding gem. A simple but life-changing method that unites these threads. The good news is you don't need exotic technology or pricey supplements to adopt it. It's about weaving consistent microhabits into your day. Start with a Salk Hour, a 60-minute window carved out for self-care. In that hour, you might do 15 minutes of movement, 15 minutes of mindful planning or journaling, 15 minutes of meal prep with fresh, whole foods, and 15 minutes of reading or skill building that stimulates your mind. This hour can happen in the morning or evening, whichever suits your schedule. The point is regular, daily devotion to the key pillars: movement, mental calm, nutrient focus, and purposeful engagement. Over a few weeks, this practice can anchor your entire day, reducing the odds you'll revert to stressful autopilot. If that sounds too big a leap, start with 30 minutes or even 15, any dedicated block that concretely invests in your well-being. The shocker is how swiftly such a routine can yield results. You might find your cravings for junk food lessening, your midday energy spiking, or your bedtime transitions smoothing out. Over months, you might realize your frequent headaches or colds are gone, that your mood is more stable, and that your need for certain over-the-counter meds has faded. Though anecdotal, these personal transformations echo what Salk believed possible on a grand scale. A human population that leans heavily on self-sustaining health, with pills reserved for dire or specific cases, rather than everyday crutches. At this juncture, I ask, if you were to adopt just one part of the Salk Hour, which component would it be? Movement, mental calm, nutrition upgrade, or mindful learning? That's your final question to share in the comments. Reflecting and stating it publicly can nudge you to follow through. It's a humble but powerful step in forging your new baseline of immunity and vibrancy. No prescription needed. In closing, remember, Jonas Salk wasn't just the man who gave the world the polio vaccine. He was a thinker who dared to imagine a future where our synergy with the immune system surpasses the limitations of repeated pill popping. He saw daily life as an immunological battleground, but one we could dominate through cleanliness, balanced habits, emotional steadiness, and social unity. Whether or not you truly can exterminate 90% of diseases might hinge on factors like genetics, environment, and chance. But even if the real number is 80%, 70%, or 50%, the principle holds. Each incremental improvement in your daily routine is a gift to your body's defenses, a step away from pharmaceutical dependency, and a move toward a life brimming with healthful freedom. After all, polio once seemed unbeatable until Salk's vaccine changed the world. If that's possible, perhaps the personal revolution of your own health is possible too, especially when guided by the synergy of environment, mindset, and daily rhythms that Salk so passionately advocated. And that, at its core, is how Jonas Salk believed we might collectively banish the lion's share of ailments, not through magic or luck, but through the everyday heroism of living in alignment with nature's potent design.